Okay, so like I said, this is a third Anchor Lunch talk, and this time we'll focus on blackwater. Yes, my name is Maria Lennartsson. I work as a sustainability coordinator at the City of Stockholm, but I'm also the work package leader for the communication work package at Anchor. So we'll go into what the Anchor project is about. The idea is to fuel the transition towards water-wise neighborhoods, and by collecting information from a number of demo projects using source separation technology. These are Helsingborg, Hamburg, Amsterdam, Ghent, and Kerkrade. They're all decentralized systems, and the project will be mapping impacts and experiences from all these projects. And hopefully by the end of the project in 2026, we'll have some very good information to share with you. We're also trying to engage closely with the stakeholders, and therefore we have these lunch talks on a regular basis. And like I said, at the end of the project, we hope to deliver practical tools and transition of knowledge. We are 8 partners cooperating in this. I won't go through everybody. And today's agenda will be presented by 3 people. First, we'll have some kind of introduction by Professor Jörg Longdong. And then Hamza from Hamza from Helsingborg will describe how we can treat blackwater for resource recovery, and experiences from Ghent. Dries will be describing what the economy of source separating systems will be. Hopefully we'll have some time for discussions at the end. So, Professor Jörg, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. So I will talk about the question, or try to answer the question, why we should collect blackwater separately from grey water. What is the right thing? No, the presentation is not really working. Oh, sorry. I don't know. Okay, so we can try to fix this problem, but I can start without overheads. That's not that problem in the first run. Okay, now it worked. Very good. Yeah, that was fine.
This is the first, yeah?
Yeah, this is the first one, and it's very good. Okay, thank you. So, maybe we get a little bit in a hurry at the end, so you will get my 5 take-home messages first. So, just to explain, blackwater is a wastewater from toilet. It contains urine, feces, and flush water. So, but no grey water, nothing from bathrooms. It has 2 sides of the same metal. Blackwater contains valuables such as nutrients and energy in form of organic matter, which we can transform to methane. But it also contains hazardous matter, like pathogens, such as bacteria, virus, and parasites. It contains, and this would be one of the main topics, antibiotic-resistant bacteria and their genes. And it contains chemicals and pharmaceuticals. The conventional system of urban drainage does not have sufficient barriers against the emissions of hazardous matters. I will explain this later in detail. And our hypothesis is that source separation can provide barriers, energy, and nutrient recovery. So, my first point, what is in blackwater? So, we have grey water and we have blackwater, and blackwater is urine and feces, and this is separated here because you can clearly see the ingredients are completely different. And to make it short, in grey water we have the water, in urine we have the nutrients, and in feces, we have pathogens and antibiotic resistance. So the question may arise, why do we mix all these different streams which are separated already? And we focused in the project on both on grey water and the mixture of urine and feces, which we call blackwater. And there are many studies about the risks of antibiotic resistance. I just quote one, and this says that in 2050 we can expect 10 million additional deaths because of antibiotic resistance. So there's a new study because this number was questioned, but there's a recent study, a more detailed one, and they propose 8 million people. So not that big difference, and anyway a big deal. So what are the pathways? And these are the red arrows. So we have entries about feces. This is the main entry path. Exactly, we have entries about hospitals also, but the majority is about feces of normal people. And if we have a combined system, which you can see on the left side, then we have overflows. And you know, if it is heavily raining, then we have this overflow, and then we emit pure wastewater mixed with rainwater to our waters. And this is a major source of antibiotic resistance. So, and if you see this figure of our urban drainage system, then you see in brown all these combined systems, and then we have the overflows, and we have missing barriers against these hygienic materials and others. So even if we do not treat rainwater properly, we will have a missing barrier. And this is very important to have barriers. And how can we produce barriers? But before I come to this, just the results of a recent German research project, a weak one. And the graph may be rather complicated, but I can conclude in one sentence. They found out that combined sewer overflows are the main source of antimicrobial resistance in waters. So we have a larger emission than from the treatment plant itself. So if we could have a concept of a different system, and you can see it here. So if we would not mix any black water with the rest of the rainwater, and you could treat it separately, that would be a first step. If in a second step, we even could separate consequently the rainwater so that we have a drainage system which we do not call combined, but separate system, then we would have no overflows anymore. And this would be the ideal system. And in the first step, we just could separate black water. Then we would solve the hygienic problem and the antibiotic problem in the first step. And in the second step, maybe we have this very sophisticated system. So, but separation is not all. We have to treat black water and grey water in a manner that we really can make use of the water for grey water and avoid the emission of pathogens from black water. And in the next presentation, Hamza will talk about the black water treatment and give you more insight into this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jörg. So we will move on then from why we have the separation of black water in the upstream system in the households. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we in the Anchor demo sites treat black water. And when we're treating black water, we can not only get the benefit then of the decreased spreading of antimicrobial resistant genes, but we can also have the resource recovery in the treatment plants. So I hope you're enjoying your lunch, because the next 15 minutes will be quite rapid indeed. So, but you can always come back to the presentation afterwards, and you're also very welcome to visit also any of the Anchor demo sites to watch the numbers I will present in real life also. So, the main point with blackwater, if you look from a wastewater treatment perspective, is that it's a very smooth wastewater. It's a very nice wastewater to work with. You have very low flow rates. They are very equal flow rates all over the day and over the week. So stable flow rates throughout the year, and they're also very stable in concentrations. So we just recently finished a master thesis where we looked, for example, into the Helsingborg demo case, and we could also confirm that we have this very small variation in the flow rates in the concentrations. The concentrations are also rather high. It's around like 9,000 up to 10,000 milligrams of COD per liter, 120 milligrams of phosphorus, and around 1,300 of total nitrogen. So it's quite nice concentrations also of both nutrients and organic material, and more importantly, stable in concentration. So you can have a solid treatment of these systems. You can also see that blackwater is clean, and that is in regards to heavy metals then, not the antimicrobial resistant genes. But we can see that the ratio between nutrients and heavy metals is very low for blackwater. So, for example, the cadmium to phosphorus ratio is around 8 in the influent, and we will see later it's even lower in the recovered nutrients. So the blackwater treatment chain, already since 25 years on the university side, it has been suggested that with blackwater you should actually have anaerobic digestion as the core process to treat the blackwater. So that is different from a normal wastewater treatment plant where the activated sludge process is more in the center of things. And the anaerobic digestion chain is more similar to the sludge treatment system of a normal wastewater treatment plant. So you have the anaerobic digester and you have the nutrient recovery, etc. The difference is, of course, that you have much more of the nutrients in the blackwater than in the sludge train of a normal treatment plant. So almost all of the nitrogen, for example, you have in the blackwater. So here you can see the treatment train in many of our demo sites. So a storage tank to equalize the flow, no screen, and then you have the anaerobic digester where you separate the sludge and the organic material. There might be need for solid screening, which I will tell you about shortly. And then we have the nutrient recovery steps. And in the end, if you want to do a direct discharge, you can also have the polishing steps. So the anaerobic digestion stage, we know that blackwater is, and it's already proven now in our demo sites, that it's suitable for anaerobic digestion. You can get a very good separation of the COD, but you need to have this sludge separation digester types, like the USB digester, because you need to separate the solids and the hydraulic retention time from the solids retention time in the digester. And then you get around 3 cubic meters of biogas per cubic meter of blackwater, and that is equal to an increase of around 60 to 70%, which we have now proven during the last year in Helsingborg, that we actually get this increased biogas production, which is nice. We also see that we separate a lot of the solids, so around 80% of the total solids and 70% of the COD. You remove it through the anaerobic digestion, but into a very small sludge production rate. So actually only around 2% of the total liquid flow of blackwater, which is already low to begin with, is leaving as the sludge, which is very nice because that means most of the nutrient actually passes through the digester, which is what we want. So the effluent of the digester then, we know now that we have separated most of the solids from that stream, which is nice, and most of the organic material, but we still have most of the nutrients in this effluent. So we have almost all of the nitrogen and a sufficiently large amount of the phosphorus still left in the effluent water. And those are also in mineralized forms, so they're good for extraction into nutrient products, like with struvite precipitation or ammonia stripping that we do have. However, we have also noticed throughout the years that you can also have solids washout from the digester. We don't really understand what is the main cause of this sludge washout from the digester. It happens from time to time. So then we can have the solids concentration increase in the effluent, which of course is detrimental if you want to have a nice and easy running nutrient recovery downstream. However, what we have found that even if we don't understand the cause of this, we know how we can remove the problem, which is, of course, is the good engineering approach. So we have tested both the drum filter and the microfiltration as a sort of screening after the digester before the nutrient recovery. And you can see on this photo, of course, the results of both. So with a drum filter, you have a 40 micrometer cloth screen. And then with a microfiltration, you can go down all the way to 0.1 micrometer screen. And if you do that, you have, no solids. It's beneath the detection limit of 10 milligrams suspended solids per liter. But already with the drum filter, we noticed that we get a stable effluent just below 100 milligrams of suspended solids per liter. And that is sufficient enough for the downstream pretreatment. And we also know now from over 9 months of operation that it also can handle very high solids loads if you do that, get that sludge washout. So that is a very nice and easy to operate system which we are making now a permanent installation in the Helsingborg demo case. And I know they're also building it in one place in the Netherlands. So if you move to the recovery of nutrients, what is nice with blackwater is that you can have the recovery of nutrients in many different ways. You can have the total liquid fractional recovery, which we do not actually do in the Anchor project. It's more for the rural areas where you're close to farmland. So then you can do the wet composting with urea addition, or you can have the concentrate recovery of the whole liquid stream with, for example, distillation or the freeze concentration. That is, we have tested in Helsingborg, and it's been also tested in the United States. Then you also have the sludge fractions, which we do monitor in the Anchor project. So we know that the sludge quality is good, and that is cleaner than normal sewage sludge. However, in our demo sites, the volumes we produce are actually quite small, so around 2 cubic meters per week. So we mostly monitor this sludge. We actually don't reuse it in agriculture in a continuous way. What we do, however, is the extraction of nutrients. That is our main focus with the struvite precipitation, both in Ghent demo site and in Helsingborg, and the ammonia stripping, which we do in Helsingborg. So some results of the struvite recovery so far. What we can say is that it's a quite low cost technology, and a low chemical need as well. So you dose some magnesium chloride to get the struvite precipitation with the phosphorus. And that has been around on blackwater in a few places. We also know that in the EU, this recovered fertilizer is in the EU fertilizer regulation. So that means you can both get the end of waste status, and it's also approved for ecological farming if you go through this EU regulation. So that's a really nice pathway to recovery of nutrients into farming. So from the results we have so far, we know it's a clean product. And interestingly enough, we also noticed the decreasing trends from the beginning of operation. So that is likely wear from the process equipment. As you can see, the anti-corrosion protection of nickel and zinc and chromium, etc., leaching into the first bags of struvite. But even with that happening, we can see that the concentrations of, for example, the heavy metals in the struvite is very, very low. For the ammonia stripping and ammonium recovery, ammonia stripping, I would say, is a proven technology, and that's been around for many decades. But it's also quite high in chemical usage and operational cost, because you need to add the sodium hydroxide, the sulfuric acid, and heat, etc. Even with all that taken into account, there is still a positive climate effect, because you also have to compare to the fossil nitrogen cycle, which you would otherwise use to create fertilizer. So even with this technology, you still get a positive climate effect. It is done in Helsingborg, but also on a few municipal wastewater treatment plants, like the one in Oslo, for example. And I mean, the product you produce is a pure salt, as you can see here in the photos. And it's also on this EU fertilizer regulation list with end of waste. But I would also say that this is also a quite labor-intensive method, and there are more efficient nitrogen recovery methods being developed. Membrane stripping is one of the promising ones coming up. We've also tested on the end products, of course, I would say, these fertilizer pellets, and we have good also agricultural yields for these nutrient products, if you're interested. So the polishing is not really the central part of the anchor project, I would say. But if you have the direct discharge of blackwater, you also need the polishing, because if you have nutrient extraction, you still have some remaining phosphorus and nitrogen in the stream that is not really economically viable to recover. So in Ghent, they do mix the blackwater effluent with a greywater effluent to treat them and decrease the nutrient concentrations in the activated sludge system. And then they also have the color removal before the entire wastewater stream is recovered into the soap factory. And in Helsingborg and Hamburg, polishing is not really part of the demosite process as of yet, because we're still working with the upstream process. But it's still important to mention that you need this. And for example, removal of pharmaceutical residues that is not in this anchor project, but we have a separate life application on this topic. We see that anaerobic digestion is good for removing some, both pharmaceutical residues and pathogens, but it will not be a complete treatment. So likely we need a dedicated process step, like the activated carbon or carbon filters, for example. So the outlook, I would say that what we see in this anchor project and over the past years is that we're moving now from university research into municipal operation of blackwater treatment. And as a utility operator that I am, I would say that you have the smooth flow rate and the stable concentrations in blackwater is what has really surprised me and what I really, really enjoy with blackwater. So on the downstream treatment side, there are benefits to work with the blackwater as a wastewater. I think we can also confirm that the anaerobic digestion is a central process, as was suggested by the university research. We can see that also in real life, where you can have a suitable then reduction of the solids, and you produce this nice effluent, which is good for the nutrient recovery. We have also some of the practical issues with the sludge washout, and we will go through this end of waste process for the struvite and ammonium sulfate. In Helsingborg, we expect it to be done in Q3 of 2025. So what we're still lacking, I would say, is knowledge of the full-scale operation of the organic micropollutant removal, so that we don't really handle in this project. So, but you should also keep a lookout, because later on in this project, we'll produce also the mass balances of all the anchor demosites, so keep a lookout for that. And we'll also make this assessment, because we're now doing the sampling of the antibiotic-resistant genes at all demosites, and we do the assessment also what Jörg talked about. So, quite intense. And now we'll hear some of the economy of source separation from our friend in Belgium.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, Hamza. My name is Dries Seuntjens. I'm a project manager for the case of Dukoop in Belgium. And I would like to talk a little bit about the economy in source separation systems. So let's start off with the title of this talk. Where is actually the economy in source separation systems? So where it means, what has value in our source separated streams that we are separating, and why is there value in it? That are important questions to answer. Economy means market. Is there a market for this value? It doesn't mean if we value something that there is a market for this value. And most importantly, what do we mean with a source separating system? I think Jörg explained it very well. It is separating the different streams at source and then using technology, like, for example, decentralized on-site water treatments to recover the things and create value for on-site and also for society. So let's try to answer these questions. Where is the economy? And I think one important aspect is location. So every one of us is living on a different part in the world, and each location has its own economy, its own market. And within that economy, there is also you yourself as an individual, or as a group of people, a group of flats, or a district which is organizing itself. And so different solutions on source separation can happen on an individual level, where the financing and the responsibility is more on that individual level. Well, if you go to more a collective approach of source separation and treatment, this financing and responsibilities go more to a local utility and the public level. And so this is very important to understand why we would make certain decisions to invest in source separation and create the correct market for adoption and implementation. The second part is then the market itself. So where can we create value for what is within source separated streams? And there we have, I think, three important, I think 5 important value streams. That is the water, and we can recover the water. We can recover energy, nutrients. But other value streams are also the current infrastructure that we are having, the sewer capacity, how much drinking water we are producing, the adaptation to climate change of our current infrastructure. And on the other hand, we have health and environmental parameters, like the antibiotic pathogens that we are talking about, but also micropollutants, heat island effects within the city that can be connected to water provision by on-site water treatment, and eutrophication, also an important aspect that is associated within our water treatment stream. And we can see here again for these different cases, the individual house, the flats, and the district, we can see that on the individual house, the market will be mainly on how much water can I save, how much energy can I recover, and depending on the location, how expensive the water or the energy will be, that will define if local water treatment or source separation will happen on the individual level. Also, heat island, urban greenery, if you can connect that water recovery with local greenery, you can have a stimulation or evaluation of the real estate or living there in the neighborhood with investments in local source separation. And this is similar for a flat or a group of apartments that are investing in this type of technology, but it's completely different for on a level of a district or a city where the aspects of the current infrastructure, the health and the environment and the societal benefits and the market that these create also are important to take into account into the choices of implementing source separating systems. And then it's important to ask ourselves what drives these different markets. And here we have, I think, 3 important aspects. That is, one is scarcity. How scarce are certain resources? In some areas in the world, water is becoming very scarce. In South Europe, in San Francisco, South Africa, and so on, people are really in need of water, and so separating systems are a solution to put less stress on the drinking water supply of these regions. But also sustainable energy. In certain climates and geographical regions, sustainable energy is not that present, and wastewater can be a source of sustainable energy. Next to that, there is environmental regulation. We are starting to understand more and more all the impact of us as humans on the planet, and we are having regulations to stop and limit those impacts. And these come also with costs, and these can be drivers of change and implementing these source separating systems. And for this, I think the new Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, which comes into place, is going to have a lot of new legislation that can create opportunities for installing these local water treatment plants. Last is the city development, where new cities are becoming bigger and bigger and are demanding more and more new districts, and our current infrastructure is sometimes running on its end on those aspects. Together with the real estate valuation and the well-being of citizens, if we connect the water cycle with an urban green cycle, this can also be an important driver. So I'm going to now explain a little bit by some numbers from Ducoop and how our system is set up on how economy can be, how different give different examples of these type of economies. So For example, in the case of Ghent, we are treating our wastewater, blackwater and grey water, and we are recovering after treatment the heat with heat exchanger and a heat pump onto our district heating system, which is bringing this heat to the houses of the people. And we saw that from the numbers, up to 25% of our local yearly heating demand can be covered by this heat recovery from grey water. How do we implement it on site? We use this heat and we sell it to the client in the form of an energy as a service concept, which means that the clients are paying for the energy that they are using in the district, and they are also paying a fixed fee for being connected to our district heating. Up to that, we also implemented a local energy community where we invested extra in solar production and battery, electrical vehicle charging stations, and energy management systems to really optimize all this local energy management in the district. Second example is the water service company. On a utility level, you would just say somebody who is managing a wastewater treatment company. So what we do here is that we treat our blackwater kitchen waste and the grey water, and we treat it on site, and the water is reused in the nearby soap factory of Christens. So how do we manage to operate our wastewater treatment plant? Is that the inhabitants in the district, they don't pay anything more for drinking water and water treatment plant as they would live somewhere else in Flanders or in the city. But still, when they are paying their drinking water bill, they pay levies for treatment and transport for the water. And this is used by Ducoop to manage our water treatment plant and collection systems. Extra revenue we create by the sale of the purified water in the nearby soap factory, Christens. A third aspect is the waste service company, and that is then the processing of the kitchen waste that we do. So you can see there a picture of a collective kitchen waste shredder, which is installed in different locations in the district, where people can bring their kitchen waste and it is shredded and then transported to our water treatment plant. Again, the inhabitants don't pay more for this service than somewhere else in the city, but the levies are again coming to Ducoop to manage and operate our systems. Extra revenues that we generate by the production of biogas out of the kitchen waste are then further used to operate our systems. I want to talk a little bit more about some other results we have that create more level on a societal level or within the city. One of them is, for example, the reduction of the urban heat island effect. If we use treated grey water, we can use it to bring this water to urban greenery. And we did some water quality testing. Here at Bultwise, an organization in Flanders, did this water quality testing, and they saw it is free of pathogens and more than conform enough to really be used as irrigation water. And so potential revenues are on a city-country level reduce heat-related health problems, which are going to become a very important aspect with the climate change and adaptation. And if we have nice urban greenery around, it will create increased happiness and productivity by the inhabitants and create a larger real estate valuation of the real estate which is present in our city. A second aspect is then the reduction of sewer overflows, as already been highlighted by Jörg. We can say that the last 4 or 5 years we had very limited use of the central sewer connection. It's still necessary for an on-site water treatment plant to be connected to the sewer for maintenance or for other aspects, but yet we will have much limited use of this connection, and this can help then the city to adapt its system much better to reduce sewer overflows. Things you don't want to happen during the Olympic Games, but it happened. And some other pictures of last year, large floodings in Flanders. Things you don't want to happen, that these sewer overflows create risk of pathogen spreading. And then the last one is new city developments. This local recovery may also increase the connection capacity of local water infrastructure. Within the Anchor project, there are new city developments both in Stockholm and Helsingborg, and there the municipalities see that the current sewer system is actually running on its limits to support these new districts. Though they are looking into also implementing local treatment systems there. So again, there the potential revenues are the avoidance of the change of the current wastewater or drinking water infrastructure to support those new districts. So we have this all these ideas. How do we go from maybe you're working on a certain project? How do you go from this idea of implementing source separation to an installation that is operational? In the middle, you need a good business plan, a good business model on how to calculate these different scenarios. And in what I'm not going to walk you through this whole business plan and model that we developed, but I'm going to show you some results of scenarios which indicate under certain conditions where source separation can be feasible. And so the financial model is built on different aspects that are linked in between. So we have different pillars of this model which look into the governance model, but also the relation between heating and cooling and the water cycle, the electrical community, and then the water and green infrastructure. And then all these things are financially modeled. Like how much does it cost? How much is it going to cost in the future? How quickly are inhabitants going to be inside the district, and how fast the revenue streams are going to be built up for within the framework of such developments, and how are we going to finance it? So where is the money coming from? It's very important to model this type of new logistics and business models based on source separation. And I'm not going to bug you with all the details, but in the end, it becomes a really complicated model, financial model that calculates through all these results. And we can say that in general, if we want to apply blackwater treatment and recovery, which, for example, energy and nutrients, like Hamza was explaining, we need minimum scale, also very location depending of 1,000 housing units, but I think it's really citywide. I think more on a larger block-wise city scale of implementing it. So you can get enough scale to really run the digester and all the nutrient recovery installations in a smooth and good way. It's a smooth wastewater, but we need a lot of it. We can improve the economy as well by combining certain waste streams, like they do as well in the case of Viervelder in Hamburg. But we need sufficient scale. And then if you're looking to greywater treatment and recovery, we can look in for the context of Belgium in the case of 150 to 200 houses that we come to a financial interesting picture when it's organized more on a private level, but then it has to be coupled with heat recovery. And so the recovery of heat is a very important driver of that financial model because it replaces other heat sources and investment in the production of heat, which can be more easily done when done and after treatment of water. It's very context driven, depending on the price of water and renewable heat, the density of the urban environment. It works much better in very high-rise tower buildings than single houses, of course, because the heat losses are much higher. And it also depends if there is a reuse potential of the water that is being treated. So I hope with highlighting already a little bit two of these cases that I can give you already some inspiration of where the economy lies, what are the possibilities, and we can go into an interesting discussion. So thank you for your attention, and hope to see you soon.
Yes. you had something more here.
Oh,
Implementing
no.
future-proof districts.
Oh, thank you. That is a backup slide.
Sorry. Before we go into the discussion, we will discuss greywater in the next lunch meeting, and we are planning to host it on the 2nd of December, same time at 12 o'clock. So I hope you will be listening in. But now I think there are questions. Elizabeth, you have been collecting questions. So let's go into the discussion. Take away that.
And we haven't had so many questions in the chat just yet, but a few, so please send in more. There's one question to Hansa. How important is the vacuum system used in Hansa World for the whole backwater treatment? With the sub-question, is there anything that impedes, prevents blackwater separation treatment in older normal systems within separation marks?
That's a really good question, because I think in the downstream treatment, blackwater is really nice, but you do need upstream treatment in the buildings. So the benefit of vacuum system is, of course, that you keep the blackwater concentrated. So the numbers I showed, those are achieved with the vacuum toilets, and that is really needed, I would say, to have that high enough concentration to have nutrient extraction and so on. So if you start to have too much flush water, you will dilute the black water too much to have energetically efficient extraction of nutrients. So they are really central. So the vacuum is just used to keep the concentration up. Black water is 50 times more concentrated than normal sewage, thanks to the vacuum system. But then the other question when it comes to retrofitting older buildings into vacuum systems, there is some research being done down in Germany, actually, that Jörg has been involved with to retrofit old sewer systems to have also an inline pipe for the black water. So there's some interesting research you can look into there. And otherwise, I would say in buildings, and I believe you have to do it when there is it's time to change the stems of the buildings.
Okay, yeah, so we have two approaches. The first one is just, as Hamza mentioned, inliners. So you know those inlining systems where you can repair old pipes. But we invented a relining system which introduces two pipes at the same time, one small one and one larger one. And if you have this typical shape of a pipe, then you have it later, it looks like this. So like a kidney shape and a small round one. And the small round one is suitable for vacuum system. So you can drain water in the kidney sink and black water in the small pipe. And we tested it hydraulically. That is working up to 5 apartment levels. Definitely there should be some more research. And even there is a company in Germany providing an inlining system for large pipes, large sewers, so that you could use a vacuum system inside of the existing sewerage. So this works for long transport distances. So this is available on the market.
Now I realize we really need to test this in Helsingborg also, Jörg. So thank you for bringing up the question.
Excellent, yes. And another question is also for Hamza, I think. So you can legally use the struvite compounds from human feces nutrient recovery for agricultural purposes. Could you explain the legal conditions in more detail, please?
Yeah, so with this new EU fertilizer regulation, you achieve the end of waste status for many recovered nutrient products, so not only these, and it's all about from all waste sources as well. But basically, if you don't go through the end of waste process, you're dealing with waste. And you're allowed to spread waste on farmlands today. Sewage sludge is a good example for that. So you can legally spread waste on farmlands, that's fine. But there are some legal requirements you need to fulfill. But so we could also choose to spread struvite as a waste, but that is not really, why do you want to go through all of this process and then still have it as a waste? So we want to achieve the end of waste status. So you are instead covered by the laws on products and the chemical properties of the compounds instead. And that you achieve with the end-of waste. But in practice, you could do either way, to be honest. But it's much more preferred to have it as a fertilizer product on the farmland.
But just to add to that, it is so now that in organic farming, you don't have to go through end of waste. It's enough to have a struvite. It's fine with a struvite from wastewater.
So
Organic farming, I think.
yeah, so these are really recently emerging
Yeah.
with the EU end of waste regulation and the acceptance into the organic farming. And I was under the impression that the Society on Organic Farming in the EU would accept it if you went through the EU fertilizer regulation before.
Right.
But we might not be the right people to address this question, actually.
Obviously not. But there is some acceptance coming at least. There's another one question here. You do not differentiate black water from yellow water. From what I know, it is helpful to separate urine and feces to avoid their chemical interaction, odor problems, and thus allow specialized treatment of urine separately from composting the feces. I think it's more maybe a dry system referring to.
And I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I can answer. So there are some projects, especially driven by Switzerland and France, which separate urine and try to get the nutrients out of urine. So this is very efficient. No problem. And very good technology and everything is fine. But you have to collect it separately. And this is still a problem. So I myself tested this first toilet in Germany, which was used for that, and it clogged. And I could not operate it as a private person. So I stopped this research because I cannot say that everyone should use such a toilet. It's different with urinals. So we have a lot of experience with waterless urinals, and if they are maintained in the right way, this is really working. But this is mainly a technology for the male population. So we have it for females, but I personally have no experience, and I don't know.
But we could maybe add that, in this project specifically, we have collected people that work with vacuum blackwater sites. So that's also in this consortium, we wanted to share experiences around the vacuum systems and the blackwater treatment. So that's why we are in this project together. But we also have a conference coming up in Helsingborg in June 2025 on source separation systems. So the 12th and 13th of June in 2025, there will also be people from the Paris demo sites on urine diversion. So please come there and you will also hear all about that.
Right, and and there's another EU project called P2 Green, which is focusing also on urine. So there's a lot of people working on urine. This is a little bit of the same question, but since we have time, I'll throw it out there. Since you already treat kitchen waste, how do you view the potential of dry feces collection? Using drinking water as transportation medium has its limits in some water scarce regions, and there are promising technological developments for dry treatment already. Legal restrictions seem to be the main barrier. What is your view on dry urine, dry feces collection?
No experience with dry feces, so
I think it will be, we are limited in experience, I think, on the dry feces collection. Maybe it's you, Elisabeth, who are the best suited actually to answer that.
Maybe not in dense urban areas. Maybe it's not the best solution, but I don't know if it's the legal barriers that is.
I think it's the practical barriers.
And the experience we have from Stockholm with this housing association doing that, it's like you have to be very involved, and if you have people living in a housing association ready to put a lot of effort into management, I suppose it can work, but it's still
and in many African countries, it is collected, dry feces is collected, but it's manual labor collecting it. So I'm not sure it works in pipes in our environments.
But I think we can also say from the Helsingborg perspective, when we were thinking about source separation system, I think it was important that for the user in the homes, the system would not be so different from the systems they use today, and that is the water flush toilet. And I think we were thinking that was important because of the user acceptance. And vacuum toilets, yeah, they look the same as toilets. They have different sound, but basically it's the same function you get. And either with urine diversion toilets, you would have the same. They look more or less the same as normal flush toilets.
And you're flushing your toilets with about a liter or less?
Yeah, so both. It's a liter at the maximum for the vacuum system, but also for the food waste grinder. Yeah, people use around between 4 and 5 liters per person a day of water. It's not super much of water, actually, if you compare it to the grey water usage in the households. So I'm not really scared of the water usage for the collection system of blackwater and food waste. The real savings we had in the grey water, I think.
Okay, continue with some more questions there. Do you need a buffer tank before going to the anaerobic digestion, and how to prevent the sedimentation that you get in this buffer tank? That was for me.
Yeah, it's for both Ghent and Helsingborg, I think. So we can say, yeah, in both our systems, we do have a buffer tank before. The purpose is mainly to equalize the flow rate over the day. So you separate how the pump runs from the digester. Interestingly, there's no screen in the Helsingborg case. And
we have a shredder, the Ghent case, but I think a buffer tank it's really important. There are systems that run without buffer tanks. For example, in large cruise ships, there the vacuum systems are directly coupled to the water treatment plant installation, so it can also function, I think, without a buffer tank. It depends on how the technology is built and what certainties you also have to provide in terms of when the installation is not functioning. So when the buffer tank is there, at least some time can be covered. So it's a design perspective as well.
And it's also not the cost. The buffer tank is 1/5 of the size of the digester in Helsingborg, so it's really not cost driving at all. For the sedimentation in the tank, we have not actually experienced any large sedimentation in the tank as of now. I don't know if you have seen it in Ghent.
No, the tank is also mixed in our case, so it's completely mixed.
That's important to notice also in Helsingborg. There's a continuous mixing of the tank, and then we just put some into the digester in each mix run. We also have backwash of the pump from the collection tank to keep it clean.
But mixing is really necessary. We had periods at one period that the shredder, the mixer was not functioning, and then we had problems with the sedimentation and clogging of the pump. So you need to keep it homogeneous, and it works well.
Yeah, but you need to shred, especially when people flush down these wipes and so on. You have a pump that can shred that material.
Can't we just make people not flush down wipes?
If you solve that, Elizabeth, people flushing down wet wipes, we have a good business. But I think it's important that we have object traps and shredding pumps in the blackwater collection system. That's important to realize.
Yeah. I think if you want to stop wet wipes, you have to start at the source.
Yeah,
it's the production of wet wipes. And a lot of parents will not agree with you. So, I think...
is it children mostly that uses wet wipes, or what is it?
I think for cleaning children and in the first year.
I used to throw it in the bin.
Yeah, we will not solve this issue now.
Okay, so two more questions. So 2 quick answers then. The main reason for a UASB is the solid separation, right? Do you still recommend the UASB reactor if you add a TSS removal in the effluent of the reactor? Can you also use a continuous stirred tank reactor?
Yeah, as a process nerd, I really like these questions. I will start, Chris, and you will come in. Yeah, you need a USB because the black water, even though it's concentrated, it's much less thick than a sludge. So you need to separate the solids from the hydraulic retention time, or your digester will be super big and cost a lot of energy to heat. So that's why you need a USB system. And they do work very well for blackwater, as well in big scale now as we do, as in the university results from before. Yeah, we do have some problems with the sludge washout in the effluent, but the drum filter, as I see it, is not that you need really big extra treatment steps. It's there as a protection, and it runs, I mean, the energy usage and the amount of maintenance you need for drum filters, like every 6 months, we do a weak acid clean of the cloth, and that's it. It's really a really amazing and easy thing to add to the treatment chain. So I would say, why not have the drum filter? But of course, it's interesting in the long run to understand why we have the sludge washout. And there is some research being done in the Netherlands that maybe have less sludge washout with thermophilic anaerobic digestion than mesophilic, for example. But we'll have to wait and see the results.
Right. Okay, so there's someone in the audience is very interested to know from which countries all the participants are. So just a shout out to everyone participating. If you don't mind, just put in the chat which country you're from, so we get that all. And then there's a question about user acceptance on vacuum flush toilets. How do people feel about the toilets themselves and their knowledge of the waste we use?
And that
are
is
there studies of this?
And that is a separate work package in the Anchor project. And that will be a lunch talk further down the line. The work package 3 is all about the social acceptance.
Yeah, but maybe we can have some simple sentences. So, talking on the timeline, the first vacuum toilets were rather loud, so noisy. And the noise is a little bit different from the flush toilet. So this was disturbing. And then we have a lot of experience in the old project Flint and Breite, where they had bad installation. Okay, that was not accepted, but we know all that, and especially in a former project, Hamburg Wasser wrote a book about maintenance and installation of vacuum systems. And if you really follow these rules, we have no indication that they are not accepted anymore.
Okay, I think time is up. Thank you so much for listening in, and please note that the next meeting will be on the 2nd of December, but there will also be a reminder sent out to all of you that have registered to the Anchor website. So, yeah, thank you and goodbye for now.